If you're not sitting in front of a handout and a nail, then you either need to move down front, or if you move down front and you still don't have a handout and a nail, then we will probably either need to share very quickly, or we probably will need to make a couple of extras, although I may not have enough nails and we'll share the nails. Because the nail was a come in the door activity anyway, and that's okay, and I can explain it very quickly as we go. As you came through the door, the idea was, as you enter or launch, would be what are the critical attributes of the object in front of you. And this is a great idea for students so that they would come in and settle down and get right to exactly what it is that you wanted them to be thinking about. And so you had an object in front of you, and you would have been very quickly scribbling down. If those of you that were early birds, you came in and hopefully you were scribbling down some of the, and by the way, there's a couple of handouts down here if some of you still need to come down front or you want us to pass them back. Did any of you get some of the critical attributes of the object in front of you? Speak up quick, quick, quick. What would be the object in front of you, by the way? It's a nail. What would be some of the critical attributes, real quickly?
It's a solid.
Solid. Sharp.
Hard.
Hard. Say it again. Strict. Straight. Okay. Pointed. Metallic. Okay. Okay. Why do I need to get to the critical attributes of an object or whatever it is that I'm going to focus on in a lesson? As a teacher, why do I need to get at just the critical attributes if I'm going to really focus on critical thinking? Come on, teachers. It's early, I know that. Why should I know the critical attributes of the lesson I'm going to teach?
Because it's so easy to get distracted by either things you may personally find interesting or the things that jump out rather than thinking about, okay, what's really core to.
Very good. I need to get to the core rather than just the fluffy outer sides.
I think it's kind of hard to think critically about something that you haven't defined fairly accurately.
You have to define it. Can't think critically if you haven't defined it.
I would say we probably aren't going to be learning about this particular nail so much as we're going to be learning about every nail in general. So we need to know what it is about this that's common to everything that's in its...
Very good. Definitely. We're going to have to think about all nails and then try to link them back together. Very good. Okay. So if we're teaching for critical thinking in all delivery systems, now, like you said, I'm going to have to think about other delivery systems because I'm not teaching right here. I'm teaching, and today I'm going to be thinking about how to think critically and teach critically, not just here, but in those wires when we're teaching online. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So very, very quickly, and I'm going to talk quickly and try to watch that clock. What is critical thinking? First question. What is critical thinking? There's a name associated with critical thinking that we all have kind of tossed around for years and years. Who comes to mind when we say critical thinking? Socrates. Who else in the education world? There's another major name that comes to mind. Benjamin Bloom. He is the father of critical thinking in the education world. Okay, so yeah, Bloom's taxonomy. Some of you know about that. So, what is critical thinking? Have we defined it? We just said if we want to know, get at the critical attributes, we have to define it, right? Do you think we've really defined critical thinking in education? How many of you think we have? Wow, y'all are such skeptics. You don't think we've defined it. Very interesting. So how are we going to teach for it if you, as educators, still don't think we've defined it? And if you're not sure we've defined it, why then are we even teaching for it? Good questions as we start out. Anybody else need handouts? Raise your hand. You're going to need them in just a minute. If you don't have one, be sure you have one. Oh, lovely. Nice long quote. That's why you have them in front of you. Okay. So these two gentlemen think they've defined critical thinking. Rather than me reading it out loud to you, you have it in front of you. Here's the first critical thinking definition for you. So just glance over it for a minute. See what you think. You can read it here or on your paper. Okay, raise your hand if this agrees with anything that you have learned about critical thinking in the past. If it somewhat goes along. Okay, it has some of the verbs, right? It has some of the processes, okay? So if these gentlemen were in your class and you were Socrates, you would say they're somewhat on the right track, right? Okay, so we'll let them stay for now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would critique this. I'd say it's a little bit too broad. It seems to be almost everything you could possibly do.
Okay. So they're trying to be everything to all people. All right. They're trying to be all GT kind of everything. So showing out. All right. So then let's go to someone who thinks they want to narrow it down a little bit. How about this definition? How many of you agree with this one? Oh, come on. I have to have some like social science. Now, I thought you were going to be the one to agree with it. This is a social science definition. For sure, you were going to say, of course, this is a definition. Okay, but this is another definition, right? Okay, so take that one in. But possibly what's wrong with this one? Little broad, a little over to one side or the other. Okay. Well, let's look at this one. This one might favor my world. Different way of looking at it. How many of you agree with this one? Yeah? Can you think critically without doing some of that? Okay. No? Maybe not. Okay. What are you having to do right now? Gotcha, huh? Interesting. All right. So, the next thing, this is another one, just to give you a little food for thought. As we go into this whole idea, we're doing it right here, then online communication also offers a lot of possibilities for critical thinking. Would you agree or disagree? We don't just have to do it like we're doing right now. If this were a college class, could we also be doing the same kind of communicating in the online delivery system? Okay, sure. Okay, one more. See what you think of that one. This is for us. What do you think?
I really like the fact that it's focused on sort of character development and development of the individual more so than some of the other ones.
Okay. All right. Well, I've sort of been playing along with you just a little bit because I wanted to use these as an activity, because you have a handout in front of you that's on the next page, and the idea is that you have, sometimes in our classrooms, we'll have discussions about things, and as faculty members, sometimes we don't really jab at our students and get them to think. We accept answers on the lowest level of thinking. Students will respond just like you did, and I let you off real easily. I just, it's early, and so you just kind of gave halfway answers. We do the same thing on the discussion board online. They post on Wednesday or Tuesday or Thursday or whenever that is. And then what do? They come back and they respond to each other. Okay, good answer, whatever. That answer, like that, is that an answer you would probably give somewhat credit for? Is this a good answer? You give them credit? Oops. This handout instead offers you some possibilities of ways to come back and actually respond to your students with a deeper way, a way to drill down into the responses that they gave you. So now we're going to go back to the quotes that some of your students posted on Wednesday. That's what those quotes were that you were reading. Okay? So let's look at this first quote, the GT student, real quickly, because I don't have a lot of time and I'm not going to take away time that my co-presenter has. So here's our GT student. I want you to look at the handout that you have, and obviously the first set of questions there would probably be the clarifying questions would be the ones that most of us start with, where you ask them just to explain a little better what they were talking about. That's usually where we stop. We take off there. I want each one of you to look down through that list and just see if some of you want to pick one of the others and pose a question to this student that you would ask to get them to drill down a little deeper. What would you ask a student who posted this quote online to get them to think a little harder about what they posted? Can you see one on one of those other levels?
Actually, to give me an example, could they provide an example that they personally experienced?
Very good.
Because this is just a quote, that they're not putting any of themselves into that. It's
Okay.
just a quote.
Can you give us a personal example? All right. Look down that list. What else can you do? How can you get them to drill down deeper in this quote?
Well, I would be asking, if it were a historical question, what were the moral or theological presuppositions behind some of the terms that you were using there?
I want to be in one of your classes. Boy, that's a deep critical thinking part. We would just stop on this one right here. And then next week we'd come back to it and your question, and we would just keep on going. Yeah, that would get us thinking. Okay, what else?
This is an education class, you could say, how does this quote relate to your classroom or to your understanding?
Definitely.
Get them to reflect on their own understanding.
Absolutely. Okay. This isn't easy stuff, is it? It is not easy for the student. It's not easy for the professor, and that's why we don't do it. And that's why I'm thinking some of these, when I found this article and I saw these question stems, I was so excited. For once, it wasn't Bloom's. It wasn't those kind of levels. It was the other kind of levels where I really have to dig in and think of other kinds of analysis and other ways of thinking about getting at the thinking. All right, let's go to that one, because it's really broad. Look at your question stems. Some of you that haven't given us a question, see if you can look at one of those question stems, and this student who's posed this quote, what are you going to ask them? Yes?
What would someone who disagrees say?
Say it one more time.
What would someone who disagrees say?
Ah, very good question. What would someone who disagrees say?
I think there's an assumption of several things in here that I would challenge. What does intellectual excellence mean? What does full participation entail? How do you define critical life? What define those terms?
Very good. You got to unpack that whole statement, don't you? They've made a lot of assumptions there. Okay. What else?
If go along the assumptions, it would ask the question, does this work for someone not in our society?
Wow. Very interesting. Definitely. We make a lot of assumptions because of the society we live in, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Do you see how just some simple question stems when you go into, and we can do this right here, we're doing it obviously in your class. It fits our critical thinking things that I want you to now make application to your own discipline. Think for a minute about what you teach. Pause and think about something that next week that you're going to teach, a topic that you're going to introduce for a moment. Maybe you want to scribble that down right at the top of your page. I'm going to start out by teaching remediation and reading instruction. I have to teach running records, how to take running a record, which is how you take an assessment on whether or not a student is on track on where they should be in reading instruction. I'm going to have to get at the critical attributes of what are the step by step that I'm going to need to teach a senior level student in how to take an assessment and how to do that. And I'm going to need to be ready to drill down on those critical attributes, and when I discuss it, make sure they have a clear understanding, aren't I? Okay. I actually have the students bring quotes from articles about reading instruction and what the field is saying about what students need to know about reading. Do you have some topics in mind? Can you think about how something like this would work for you? Can anybody want to share real quickly of something that comes to mind where right now you can think of a direct application for your own classroom? Or is this just kind of fluff for you? Come on, Andre.
I was thinking one of the courses I'm teaching this semester is biochemistry. And I don't know, about the second week into the semester, we talk about water.
Huh?
And you think, well, water, it's a deal. And obviously we get into all different aspects of it, but to have the students think beyond why are we looking at water, because everybody knows what water is. So all those things to analyze a little bit more deeply, something that we see and use every day. It's commonplace that we don't think of in that way.
Very good. All right. One more?
I teach psychology, and I introduce current events on a regular basis because it's just so easy to teach the course using current events. But it's a way of helping students apply the concepts that we're learning in class. And typically I'll bring up a current event and then have the students discuss the different concepts. Often I'll just say, what are your thoughts about this? And it's really good in terms of generating discussion, but it shows them how to relate the concept we're learning to the real world. And it also helps them understand what's going on around them, which many of them don't really have an awareness.
Yeah. And these questions hopefully would help you to really get at why some of this is a little more important. Okay. All right. I hope this hasn't been just fluff for you. I hope it's been a way to see how you can get at critical thinking, not just here in our seats, but for me, the discussion board online is my nemesis. I'm just not a fan. I grade it and I just get so bored with it. I'm always wanting a way to get them to do something that is other than, okay, I posted my answer and I'm going to grade it on the end of the week. And I want more out of them on that discussion board. And when I found this, it's really for me a way that I think I can get them to dig in just a little deeper. So I hope this will be something that you can find as a way to do that as well, and in my own classroom, in my face-to-face classes as well.